guys know how to shout in this place? This next song says, shout joyfully. Can you touch somebody and say, it's time to do some shouting, man?
Okay, ladies, we're going to go ahead and pray and get our food. Oh, and the music's still going. But in the house. I am in the house. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pray for our food, and then we can go ahead and get our food. So let's all pray together. Lord Jesus, I thank you for this time, Lord, that we come together, Lord God, to learn, Lord God, about taking care of the children, Lord, better. I ask you, Lord God, to bless each one of these ladies. Lord God, I ask you, Lord God, to bless the food and the ones that prepared it, Lord. I ask this all in thy name. In Jesus' name, amen. All right.
Alrighty, well, welcome, ladies. We are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for being patient. We had a few delays earlier, but thank you for being patient. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have two things that we're going to do tonight, and we are videoing, just so you know. You are welcome to get up and get more food throughout the training, but it is going to be video recorded for in the future. Anyone that is a new hire will have to watch the video as well. So anyway, but first of all, I'm going to have Danielle Henry come, and she's going to do what is called our daily health observation course. And this is required that for religious exempt, we have two qualifications, just kind of give you an overview, that we have to meet. First of all, we are religious exempt daycare. And so there's a set of standards that we have to meet for religious exempt. They're much, much less strict than the ones that are for subsidy, which means we service people through social services. And that's a whole nother level of standards. Through religious exempt, we have to have at least one person on duty at all times that has been certified in this course within the last 3 years. I know that Sister Mimi and myself, I don't know that anyone else is still here, that we took it about 3 or 4 years ago, but it's expired, and so now we need to go through it. And I think with subsidy, if I remember correctly, we have to have multiple people certified in it. And basically what it is it's going to, when our children arrive, there needs to be somebody that's giving them a check, a physical. You're going to look at them to see if they're in good health, to see if there's something wrong. And so Danielle's going to give us more details on that, but that's something that is required to be happening every day. When the children arrive, this has to happen. And so we don't want to just rely on one person, but it's good for you in the classroom, even if you're not the first person that sees the kids, for even when they come to your room, for you to be looking at them and noticing, are there marks, are there this or that, because we don't want to have something, be accused of something happening here that didn't happen. If the kid shows up with something, we need to be alert and aware of what's going on. And so Danielle is going to instruct us on the daily health observation, tell us things to look for and all of that. And so if you wouldn't mind giving her a warm welcome.
So I started where you all were. I worked for Joyful Horizons Daycare when I was in high school. And so I know what it feels like to be in your shoes and when the kids come and when they leave. So now I'm going to give you my perspective as a nurse, like what I've gone through training for to assess patients. As a nurse, we assess our patients twice a shift. We look them over from head to toe. And I'm going to, like, this is a 4-year course. So I'm going to give you like a down and dirty of what you need to do when you see a child arrive here. So you can go to the next slide, Deja. So our objectives, these are the objectives that have to be met that Sister Diana gave me. I'm going to give you my version of what I took from it. I'm going to give you information on daily health checks like she talked about. I'll tell you what that is in a few minutes. What to do if a child exhibits signs of a possible illness. So a child gets here and they look sick, or when they're here and they start to exhibit signs of sickness. And then reportable diseases, stuff that needs to be reported to parents and to the Department of Health. And then the last thing we'll talk about is how to keep yourself and those around you safe from illnesses, more specifically blood-borne pathogens. So you can go to the next slide, Deja. Okay, so daily health checks are done with you, the staff, the child, and the parent. So when the child, sorry, there's a fly. When a child shows up to here, before the parent leaves, a lot of times they're rushing to come in, they just want to drop their child off and go. There needs to be like a hard stop. Like, no, we need to, nicely, you do it very nicely, but you ask the child, how was your night? Things like that. And you can find out information just by asking the parent and the child, how was their night? If they were crying last night, all night, that may mean they were sick last night, and the parents are not going to come out and tell you, my child was sick last night. So the what, it's a quick assessment from the head to the toe. You're just looking at the child. At times, if they're young enough, you're even going to touch them on their back, like look at their legs, everything like that. The most important thing I want you to take away from this is before the parent leaves. You don't want to call the parent when they're 5 minutes down the road and say, your child just threw up or whatever. You want to get them before they leave, and you want to not confront them, but you want to ask them questions while they're here. The where, like I talked about at the door, and why. It's for the safety of you as the healthcare workers, because everybody wants to come back to work the next day, the safety of the other children, and the safety of parents that come in and out of the facility as well. You can go to the next slide, Deja. So again, the purpose of it is to notice any health concerns on the child. And the most important thing I want you to remember on this slide is that the parents are always going to say, my child is healthy, my child is okay, because they want to go to work. So your job to protect your coworkers and to protect other children is to say, I don't feel that they're healthy at this time, and you bring it up to the proper authorities. You bring it to whoever is in charge that day, that you need to say, like, what do you think about this before the parent leaves? All right, so I have a little handout for you. And it's a picture of what daily health checks are. They are a quick evaluation of the body, mood, and behavior of a child. Your goal is to notice any health, illness, or concerns. And again, you should do it before the parent leaves. It's up to the staff and not the parent whether or not the child stays. So you're going to use all your senses when you're assessing a child when they come to the door. You're going to look with your eyes. You're going to listen, you're going to feel, and you're going to smell. So the first bullet point on here is you're going to look at their general mood and behavior. You're going to look at any change in activity level, any breathing concerns. We'll get more in depth later, but I just want to give you a brief overview. Any skin color changes, severe sneezing or coughing, any discharge from the nose, eyes, and ears. And a lot of us, that's the first thing we look for is, does anything coming out of their nose? That's the first thing you are initially taught to do, but there's more to it than just that. Any rashes or unusual spots, swelling or bruising, or any sores. So again, like I said, you want to use your 5 senses. You want to look, you want to listen, you want to feel, you want to smell, and you want to ask questions as well. You go to the next slide, Deja. This video is going to show you how you can complete assessment. It's a little exaggerated, but just watch.
Each child's day should begin with a simple health check. This is a quick way to make sure the child is healthy enough to be in your preschool program. Watch as this teacher conducts a daily health check on a slightly younger child. The same principles apply, but with preschoolers, your health check will likely be more visual, checking for rashes, bumps, bruises, or signs of illness, and more of a conversation between you and the child, asking how he or she is doing today.
I see your sock.
Whether you use a subtle or more direct approach when conducting daily health checks, please keep the following in mind. Let families know that these checks are part of the daily routine that are conducted upon arrival to the classroom. Involve the child in the process and complete the check as quickly as possible. When talking with the child's parents, ask simple questions such as, how was her evening?
Did she have a good night?
Or, how is she feeling this morning?
Good. How's she doing with the show? Good.
Whatever your style, this daily part of your routine goes a long way in keeping everyone in your classroom healthy. The American Academy of Pediatrics offers 3 key factors in deciding whether a child is too sick for childcare. The child cannot participate in activities. The child's illness presents.
Okay, so does anybody have any questions about anything that happened in that video? Or the main point I wanted to get out of that video is that if we all of you make it a habit to do it, it's not abnormal when somebody does it. So if we all get in the habit of doing it, the parents are going to expect that when Miss Crystal comes, my child's going to get assessed. It is what it is. Like, that's going to happen every single time. And so we all need to hold each other accountable. And like Sister Diana said, if you're not the one that's at the door and that person forgets, you take the initiative and do the health check for everybody's safety. So that's really important. Like the video said, we're going to go on to what determines if a child should stay or if they should leave. And there's a lot of symptoms. And like I said, this is a class. Like there's a whole pediatric nursing course, and people are dedicated to pediatric nursing. So you're not going to be an expert by the time you get out of here. My goal is to teach you like the essentials where you should know to contact somebody else if you have a question. The biggest thing is if the child cannot participate in activities, that child that is in the corner by themselves and they're sleeping, or the child that usually is running around and they don't want to play today, that's a child you need to be a little concerned about. The sickness is a risk for those around you, like I keep talking about. If they have something that can get other people sick, that they don't need to be here. It's not fair to anybody here. And then if it's requiring you to give that child extra attention and you're not able to care for the other children. For example, one of the examples later in the slide is if a child has too many poopy diapers. Like if they're diarrheaing, I'm a nurse, so all this stuff is like common. If they have diarrhea like 3 or 4 times in a day and you're having to change that diaper that many times, you can't keep up with that when you have 6 or 7 other children. So that's something to think about. Well, maybe we need to send this child home if they're pooping this much, because we can't keep up with that. The next slide. There's more specific symptoms that you need to look for. A fever. If a child has a fever above 101 orally, I'm not sure how far you guys can go with it, but just for your knowledge, 102 rectally and 100 underneath the armpit. So every time you get a temperature, you'll get something different depending on where it is, but it's important to know, again, orally, if they have a temperature greater than 101, rectally greater than 102, and 100 underneath the armpit. Diarrhea. Diarrhea is defined as watery stools or stools that are not formed. So in the younger children, it's kind of normal to have a little bit of diarrhea every once in a while. But like as children get older, if they are like pooping through their clothes, like they probably don't need to be here. If they have diapers that, like I said before, you're changing 3 and 4 times, they probably don't need to be here. There's like serious health conditions that are associated with diarrhea, so we don't want to take it lightly. Like that parent needs to know, like children can get dehydrated with diarrhea, like there's a bunch of concerns, so we need to let that parent know and probably get them out of here. The next slide. I'm gonna go into more specific, like, this is another one, blood or mucus in the stool. If you take a child to the bathroom and you notice that their stool has like a clear color in there or just looks abnormal, and you're like, wow, why would I be looking at their poop? It is important to look at. Even if the child is, like if they're in the toddler age, you should probably still be looking at their poops because they can't tell you that something is wrong. So you have to be the eyes and ears to say, there's something wrong here. Of course, within parameters and using the correct rules. Vomiting more than 2 or 3 times, that's abnormal. Sometimes you get a little sick stomach, and all of us get nervous anyway. We're probably going to send you home anyway. But if they have 2 or more vomiting, they probably need to go home. Mouth sores with drooling, that's another symptom that they probably need to go home. And then a rash with behavioral changes. If you see them, like I said, the child that's in the corner, anything like that, parent needs to be notified and they may need to go home. With the next couple of things, I'm going to talk about specific, like things that I thought that you guys would come in contact with on a regular basis. I'm a nurse and I'm not allowed to diagnose. So I would recommend the same thing to you all. You may recognize the symptoms as such and such. Like I'm an orthopedic nurse. If a patient's arm is all the way back like this, I know it's broken. But I cannot tell that family that arm is broken because it's not my place. I don't have a doctor's license. So the same thing with you. If you think a child has something, it's not your place to say you think they have whatever, X, Y, Z. You just need to say, these are the symptoms that we see. You need to get the child checked out. So just be careful because sometimes that makes parents even nervous too when you're like, I think your child has pneumonia. And you're like, oh God, my child has pneumonia. And it's like a common cold. So just be careful with what we're telling parents. One of the common things that you get is a cold. And I like this picture because a kid is like actively about to cough in your face. And how often does that happen? Where you're like, can you cover your mouth, please? So the common cold, typically it's a virus. With viruses, there's not much we can do. It just has to run its course. And another thing I learned while I was researching this is children often have symptoms of a cold, or like they can spread a cold before they ever show symptoms. So we all get nervous when we see the runny nose, but they've been in daycare all week, so it's already been spread, whatever they have. So a common cold, there's nothing anybody can do. It's runny nose, scratchy throat, coughing, watery eyes. And then once they get that fever with behavioral changes, they look and act ill, they start acting differently, that's when you need to send them home. So not necessarily when that you see the sneezing and the coughing, but when you see the behavioral changes and the fever is probably when they need to go home. The next one is croup. I'm sure that you've heard of that before. It's seen with children typically 6 to 18 months. It's a viral illness that affects the airway, and it sounds like a seal barking. And I YouTubed it, and I have a little video to show you. Okay, never mind. Well, it literally sounds like a seal barking. Like if you Google it, it'll sound like that. So if you see a child that is in that much distress breathing, we really need to call the parents and get some help for them, because that's above all of us. Sure.
They said when they start running temperature that they can be contagious with the coughing.
I'm not sure. I'll have to look and see. I'm not sure about that. Not that this is, but a fever is already something that takes them out of the daycare. You know what I mean? So if they're showing a fever, even if you don't think they have croup, they shouldn't be here anyway, Important to know about croup is the reason why you hear that seal barking is because their airway is narrowed. And in healthcare, airway is the most important thing. If you don't have if your airway isn't open, there's nothing else we can do for you. So, and especially in a young child, their airway is smaller than adults. And so it's really important to keep that airway open. So like I said, it's not something that we want to wait on. We kind of should call the parents and see if they can get here quickly. The next one is epiglottitis. Anyone heard of this one before? No, it's okay. This is, is the whole thing frozen, Deja? Oh, okay. Well, I had a picture up there that showed a blocking of the airway into your lungs. They have symptoms of they can't breathe. And it's different from croup because they don't have that seal barking. They have the hoarseness, and they look like they're in distress. If you ever seen a child choking before, they show similar symptoms. So that's something to be aware of. Man, I really need that. Do you?
Can we restart it? Or I was texting you. Can I use your computer? This one's just acting up. So if I use your computer,
I can get my computer and just do it on my.
oh no, we don't have a connector for you.
I'm just gonna read it out.
Okay.
Is anybody having questions over?
On the diarrhea,
Uh-huh.
how many times should they have it before they go home? Is one enough to send them home, or should it be two?
It said 2 or more.
Okay, in a day.
Yes. But for a toddler, if they poop through their clothes, that's enough to send them home, is what the website says. Sorry, I don't have my mic. Another one that I thought you guys would come in contact with is asthma. I'm sure you guys have a couple of children that have asthma. Again, that's a narrowing of the airway, so that's really important to pay attention to. They start having a hard time breathing. They have that rapid breathing, and then in their ribs, you'll see it retract. Yep, you'll see their skin go into their ribs. Yes, and here too, you'll see that. And they'll have a whistling sound when they're breathing, so it's because they literally have a narrowing of the airway. So it's important for you to have your inhaler and stuff like that. But the parents need to tell you about these things because it's scary if you haven't seen that before. Another common thing that you guys probably see is pink eye. That is enough to send you home. The most important one that I thought was important was bacterial. Because you need an antibiotic and you have to be out for a couple of days on that. Your eye gets pink. I had a picture up here. Your eye gets pink. You get thick yellow-green discharge from your eyes. And it'll be on the eyes, and it'll be difficult to open your eyes. But if a parent tells you they're able to open their eyes, but they still have the crust and the redness, no. Like,
That's what happens. You have children that they come and you can see the little crust that they have put in their eyes, but they know it's fine, it's fine.
if you have sent a child home on, you'll have to check with them to make sure, but if you've sent a child home with pink eye or whatever, you should have a doctor's note before they can come back, because I can say my child looks good, but I'm not a doctor. A doctor needs to say that they are good, they are cleared and ready to go. Another one you guys probably see is ringworm. And there's a picture up here, you can't see it, but it's a little circle and it's red and it has a little bit of whiteness on the inside. That's contagious. You touch it and you have it. And so you want to be aware of that one. And then chicken pox. I know you guys have probably seen this one a lot too. There was a little picture, it's like blisters, it's red around the outside. They have a fever, they're irritable, they're constantly scratching. Again, we don't diagnose, but you can see a symptom of this and tell the parent, you know, we need to check this out. Another one is impetigo. That's around the mouth. It's crusted oozing, often around the mouth, and it looks like it's red, and it looks like almost like acne around the mouth, but like worse. So anything that's around the mouth, and that's easy to see. You don't have to have taken this course to tell the parent like that's not normal. So those are just a few that I thought were important. I'm not here every day. I don't know what else y'all see. I don't know what else you're interested in.
Yeah, one that we have this past summer was food and mouth disease.
Oh, yes, yes.
That one has become very common now in kids.
So you get the rash around the mouth and the hands and the foot. So that's why it's important for you to do your daily health check, because if you didn't, you may not have. Yes, that's infant. Do you want to go back to the pink eye, Deja? Yeah. So we can see what that looks like. Is it frozen again?
How about like, this you won't see like earaches, you know, when kids are like putting their ears and.
And that's a good question. So I forgot to pass this out, but this has a lot more of the common stuff that y'all are asking about too. Okay. So as a nurse, they always tell us you don't have to know everything, you just have to know where to find it. And this is a good resource for you to have. If you suspect something, you can look at this chart and say, what's going on? And earaches is common, especially in young children who drink bottles in bed. And they typically touch their ear like this, or they won't lay on that side, or.
And then they come in and they hold their ear.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, you know, we call the parents, but how about if they're just holding their ear and they don't have like a high temp?
I don't, from my perspective, we'll have to look at that sheet. It's not necessarily contagious, so it's not something they would have to go home. But it goes back to that 3 points of, are they able to participate with the activities? Because again, you have your staffing ratios, and you don't have somebody that can stay one-on-one with the child. So you could send them home on the grounds of the other 3 things.
Plus they'll probably be wanting to play down.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Now, sometimes they have problems with the ears, but not necessarily because it's related exactly to the ears when they're teething.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of children have a lot of discomfort because it's all connected.
Mm-hmm. That's why the bottles, when they lay back, that's how they end up with the ear infections. But the temperature, again, if they have a temperature, you want to send them home. But the biggest thing with sending people home is that if it's contagious, you don't want other people to be able to get what they have. And an ear infection is not contagious. It's like it's contained in the ear. And I'll talk about later how diseases are transmitted, give you a better understanding of, you know, just because you go outside and it's cold doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get a cold. There's a chain of infection that happens before you get sick. Strep throat. You guys probably see strep throat maybe in the school-age children. Strep throat is bacterial, so you have to be on antibiotics before you can come back. And they have the sore throat. They can have a fever. They usually don't have a runny nose or a cough, usually. Now, this is usually. Sometimes people present with that as well. But in the back of their mouth, there you go, they usually have that whiteness. And if you ask a child to open their mouth, you will see it. You don't have to be trained. You can see it. Yeah. All right, so we went over all the diseases. There's more information in those packets if you want to read up on it. There's some things that we don't have a choice. We have to report to, I don't know who y'all report to, the health department. And these are some of them. If you guys have an outbreak of meningitis, pertussis, strep. If strep and stuff like that is like if it's 2 or more. If you have 2 or more children who get that, you have to report it. Chicken pox, skin infections, head lice. I was going to put head lice on here, but I figured I'd have everybody itching. But head lice, that's go home. The child is itching their head. If you look in their hair, you can see little bugs, like, and they're tiny. So that's something to think about. Infections of the gastrointestinal tract, you're talking about the diarrhea, Hep A virus, and obviously you have to go to a doctor and be diagnosed with these things. The fifth disease, measles, and tuberculosis. So all those have to be reported, and they also have to be reported to parents. And when you report this to parents, you never say who the child is. In the hospital, in healthcare, we are all about HIPAA. If you know something, nobody else should know it. Your job is to tell the details without the patient or the person's name. So you can't say that Bob had strep throat. That's none of anybody's business. It's a child here that was in our infant room, or you don't even have to be that specific. A child here had strep throat. These are the symptoms they presented with. This is what the parents did. If your child shows these symptoms, please go get checked out and let us know. So again, just HIPAA, please don't tell people who the child was. Because it's respect. If that was your child, you wouldn't want everybody in the daycare to know that your child had head lice, you know? So just think of it that way. Okay, the next slide, I have another handout for you. And I love this in nursing school. I thought it was great because when you grow up, your parents tell you the reason why you're sick is because you went outside cold. No, Mom, that's actually not the reason why I'm sick. There's like 6 factors that have to be into play in order for you to get sick. And some of us that get sick often, we're like, how in the world do I always get all 6 together? Somehow you did. So I'm going to break it down like really piece by piece. So you get a germ. Some kind of bacteria, some kind of virus, some kind of parasite. This is things like strep, like somehow this germ is somewhere. So the germ is the agent, and then you have reservoirs. These are things that carry the agent. So the bug, like the little germ, has to get places by people, or people, animals, food, soil, water. That's the only way that it can move. It has to have a mode of transportation. And then it gets out when you vomit, cuts in the skin, or diapering and toileting. So that's you guys. That's what you do. You help the kids to the bathroom, you know, like you deal with cuts and bruises. So that's important for you to know is a child, all of us want to believe that children don't have any diseases, but the truth of the matter is they do. And I'll talk about it later. You have to protect yourself. So you assume that every child has some kind of disease. In my head, when I'm in the hospital, I assume everybody has HIV because that's just what I assume. It helps me do my job better because I'm like, I don't want to get that. So if you assume that every child has something, you're more cautious with how you behave. And the way that these germs get out is through using the bathroom, through saliva, through cuts and stuff like that. So you have to protect yourself. And then they get around by touching. So I went to the bathroom. The child has E. coli in their, like little girls get urinary tract infections. It's kind of common in little girls when they're learning to potty train. They wipe from front to back and they get the stool into their urethra. So they get a urinary tract infection. Well, the way that happened was because the stool moved up the opposite way. So that's how the germs get around. It was contact. Does that make sense? Are y'all following me? Okay.
We have a child, an infant, it was 7 months old, many years ago, but it was not in our care. I went home during the weekend, and by Monday, she was hospitalized for the whole
Yeah.
week because she had bowel movement through the the night, she kept on peeing, and it went through her.
Yes.
And she developed,
UTI. And it can be severe, especially when you're that young, because like young children can tell you, it burns when I pee, like stuff like that, but a baby obviously can't tell you that.
and nothing happened for the whole week. Sister Laura was panicked. She wanted to toss everything around.
So see, that's another, like a urinary tract infection is not going to spread like that. It's not going to be like, if it was head lice, then yes, throw everything away. But a urinary tract infection, unless you're doing the same thing, and you give it to yourself, like you're not, that's the only one that's going to happen. So how germs get in? They get in through your mouth, through your eyes, and through any cuts in the skin. So like your mom used to tell you, wash your hands before you eat. It really is important to wash your hands before you eat because you have germs on your hands that will get in your mouth, and that's your portal of entry. And then the susceptible host, babies, children, elderly, basically people who are compromised. If you haven't slept in a while and you come to the daycare and you help a child change the diaper, and then, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to be the susceptible host because your immune system's not ready to fight whatever that bacteria is, and then you get sick. With strep, if a child touched the table with strep, he coughed and then touched the table with strep, and then you come behind and touch the table too, you're welcome, you have strep. Like, it doesn't happen that easy, but you know what I mean? You touch it, you go eat your lunch with the same hands, and now you're having the same symptoms of the child. So in the hospital, we treat people that have the flu all the time during flu season. We do it all the time. The key is to wash your hands after you leave that room, and there's certain precautions we have to take. So the same thing goes for you. You typically won't get sick if you break the chain somewhere. And so, does that make sense? Does anybody have a question about the chain of infection and how we get sick? And so now when your mom tells you you're sick because you went outside without a coat on, you can pull this piece of paper out and tell her that's not true. All right, this next picture, I want somebody to tell me after what we just talked about, what's wrong with these pictures? Can you see it? This one over here, the girls are holding a diaper with bare hands. And this one over here, it looks like she's licking the diaper. So what's wrong with those two pictures? Yes, good job. Is that a portal of entry or what? And a lot of times, have you ever like put hand sanitizer on your hands and then be like, oh, I got a cut in my hand? You don't realize sometimes when you cut your hands. So these girls are touching this diaper and they don't have gloves on. So my lasting note for you is you all are here for the children, but you're also here for each other. And so at the hospital, we follow universal precautions. Like I said, I assume everybody is sick, everybody has HIV, it is what it is. So anytime you come in contact with saliva, urine, feces, vomit, or blood, wear gloves. And a lot of times we're like, oh, I'll just change the diaper real quick, it won't matter. No, put your gloves on, it could save you. So anytime you come in contact with saliva, urine, feces, vomit, or blood, you want to put your gloves on. Snot too, yes. And it seems like a lot of times we think it's easier if I just clean the nose real quick. You don't know what your hands may be cut. You don't know. And for blood-borne pathogens like HIV and hepatitis and things like that, they are transmitted like through contact. So you have a cut in your finger, you touch that child's blood, and there you go. So you have to be careful with those things. Protect yourself and protect others. That's the lesson I want to leave with y'all. And that's all I have. Anybody have any questions? All right.
No questions? Can I get a copy of your PowerPoint?
Oh, yes, one question concerning about I just came to my mind, concerning about observing the children. Our work with the infant, when we check the children, we can see it physically. So it will be proper for us to just pull the diaper out because sometimes I happen many times. After the parent leaves, we go and check the diaper and the child have a real bad
Rash.
diaper rash. You cannot send it home
No,
We
yeah.
don't, not to have it say, okay, no, it happened here, it was not like that when I was.
I'm glad you asked that. If I forgot to mention earlier, I'm going to get to your question in just a second. If you do notice that a child has a scrape, I mean, kids, it happens. They'll have a scrape on their leg, on their knee. You should document it and have the parent sign it with you so that they know that they came in with this and the parent is aware that they came in with this. So this is, because a parent could come back and be like, well, I never said that. You signed right here that you agreed that this was already here. And for that, I think Sister Diana or somebody in the office will have to ask you, are you okay with them taking the diaper off before? I don't know how you feel about that. I would think if you had another staff member with you to witness, y'all can both sign and say we both saw it at this time. That's what we do in the hospital. I don't know what you would prefer. It seems to me it'd be unrealistic to ask them to take the diaper off,
It seems too much, yes, but we have those cases that it's been a severe diaper rash, and they don't say
Nothing, yeah.
and then you go and take the diaper off, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I think you have to definitely document it. And
We
make sure
do.
it's the time, because then that way, when the parent comes back, you can say, we noticed it at this time,
Yeah.
And hopefully catch it early today, and you have to document.
We're supposed to catch it early, almost just a few minutes after we receive the child, because if I'm there in the morning, every child that comes, if I'm there, the first thing that I do, and I do in front of the parents, say, oh, come on, let's go, we gotta check the diaper. And most of the time, some of them are right there when I'm checking the children's diaper. That's something that I try to do every day, to check the diaper. Right before they sit in the floor, they sit in the crib, whatever I sit the child, I always check the diaper first.
So if you notice stuff throughout the day, like, I mean, we're not going to stand at the door and look at the child's bottom at the toddler class, So if you go to the bathroom and you notice something, that's something that you can write and put the time that you noticed it.
But a lot of the parents here, they let their kids just run in, they sign and they leave.
So that's where I think
They
you
don't
have to do
stay.
that stop.
Yeah, you can do a hard step.
Somebody at the door doing this.
And then what I'm saying is when they come to your class, you should do it as a check too. Just, I'm not saying you have to go through it in detail, but you should know when your kids come in and there's marks on them. It shouldn't be, oh, I didn't notice. Like, we have to notice those things. And so don't say, oh, it's not my job, it's their job. We all have to work together to cover each other and to look out for our children. So, you should at least do a physical scan of them to see for things. Even if you're in the classroom, hopefully the person out here has done it, but they may miss something too, or there may be 2 or 3 people coming at the same time. And so it's something that we have to work on. But if everybody is alert and looking for these things, we will catch so much more, and it will help. It'll help look out for the children, as well as it will help to protect you as a daycare worker and today's gal.
Now, something that we have done with one of the children is the one time the child went home and she noticed some scratch in his nose. So when she came in the morning, she addressed the situation. So what I have asked the staff in the afternoon for the parent to check the child before she leaves, to check the child, and she write down no marks and she signs. So that way, if the child leaves, don't have no mark, the parents are already signed up, so the following day she can come and say, this child, he have this scratch or anything that we have not seen. Because if they haven't, she was not happy about it. Nobody remembers seeing with the scratch. So we don't have nothing to say, okay, no, it didn't happen with us. Here is her word and our word. So for me to prevent that, that's what I asked. And she was okay with it. She will check the child before she leaves, and she signed the paper. Now, she's working in the medical field, and when she writes, no visible mark. So not something that she won't see. Yes.
Right. Yeah, that's something we could possibly work towards, but I will say that we have to be more alert as a staff. We have kids getting scratches and we don't have anyone that can tell us how it happened, and multiple times in a day. That is not acceptable. I mean, those of you that are moms and your kid comes home 2 days in a row with scratches and no one knows what happened, you're gonna wonder what's happening in that daycare. And I know that once in a while, something may get by you, but when we have multiple people in a room, we cannot have people not saying, I don't know what happened. That is not acceptable. We are being paid to watch their children, and we have to be alert at all times. We have to see what's going on, and we should never have our back to kids. I mean, you just can't. You have to be, you should be tired when you go home from work here, because you have to be like, you're like, I mean, you never get to relax your mind. You never get to relax your body. Like, if you're doing it the way it's supposed to be, you are going to be exhausted because you have to be alert. I mean, those kids move fast, you know, and even if you don't see the scratch, but you see they were over here and they were maybe fighting, I mean, you have to have some idea of what happened. And so we have to, you know, increase our alertness as staff. We have to. And, you know, look out for each other, too. Just because they're not your class, if you see them, you know, you can put your eye on them, help each other out, because we need all eyes. We need everybody on board, and nobody can catch everything, but by having multiple people working at it, we can catch it. And we have to always strive to be able to give account on what happened. If there's a mark, a bruise on a child, I mean, a parent deserves to know. And so we need to make sure that we are alert ourselves. And that is one thing that I know some people do very well, but I know we also need to pick it up in some places. And so that's one thing we can see about, you know, maybe implementing that later on. Right now, there's a lot of other things that have to be implemented. And I just ask that you please be alert to the children and marks and scratches and things like that. We cannot tell a parent, I don't know. We just cannot do that. So please be alert, attentive. Like I said, keep your eyes, never have your back to a child that is in your care. You can't watch just one child, because remember, it's not one-to-one. And so you've got to always have your eyes on the kids, knowing what's going on. And it is tiring. It is tiring mentally, but you have to. And when you're here, you have to have your head in the game. You can't be thinking about what's happening at home or what you're going to do later. I mean, you really have to. With these young children, it's very, very important that our heads are in the game and that we're here, not just in body, but we're here in mind. And you know, you have to think about it. You would want someone caring for your child that way. And so the children and the parents deserve that, our best, when we're here to help them and make sure we take good care of them. Thank you, Danielle, for educating us. That was an awesome job. So kind of things to look out for. As you know, Sister Mimi has been our current medicine administration person. She is going to be renewing that, as well as we are also training Mary Burt. So we're going to have two people that know about medicine, administering medicine, and they also help us make decisions about children going home and things like that. And so they're kind of what I call our experts in that. And so we'll have two people now, as well as some of the basic things that Danielle talked about we need to follow and know. And the more you can know, the more you can remember and learn, the better. And she gave us some handouts that will help us. And that is one thing with daycares. There is a lot of things to know, and you have to know these things. And so we're going to talk about some of them tonight. We will not be able to finish all of them tonight, but there is so many things that we have to know. Let me just ask, when you guys got hired, you should have received a copy of the Personnel Policies Handbook. If you did not receive a packet, it's pretty thick. Would you raise your hand? Okay, so who did not receive one? And some of you may have got it afterwards because we gave them out afterwards to everybody once it was revised. So you would have that one, but not at the time of hire. Okay, so who does not have one of those? Okay. I don't think we got you, Crystal, but I'm not sure. I think we missed you. And due to all the office changes, we've had some things fall through the cracks because we've had about 3 people in the office over the last 16 months. And so some things have been overlooked. Well, we are going to be giving you one of those. And it is a lot of pages, and you have to know everything in that book. It is how we operate. It is like, it's the way we should be doing things. And we tell you a lot of things and a lot of things you see, but you have to know because you have to follow that. And we're not just telling you, you got to do it this way because we want to be picky, but we are required by the Department of Social Services, even as just a religious exempt daycare, to follow things to a T. And as you know, they were here for an inspection, which we knew they were coming for an inspection. I knew they were coming for 1 inspection. They actually came for 2. And it took over 7.5 hours to finish. And the report was not so good. And so we are going to talk about that a little bit so you know, because it's not enough just for me to know, but you all have to know, because we're either all together on this, we either all pass or we all don't do well. And some of the things were clarification for me. There were some things that they did not necessarily clarify that we found out, no, this is what has to happen, especially under the religious exempt. There's another inspection we had because we receive social service children, and we are a daycare on their list that they can choose, parents can choose us, that receive subsidy. And so they, if you remember last year in 2016 in the fall, they made all these changes and they were starting to come around and do inspections November 1st. Well, because we are religious exempt, we're one of the lowest on their priority list because they go to licensed centers first. And then there's some other centers that they do, and then religious exempt is pretty much at the bottom of their list, and that's why they didn't come to us until so late in the game. But nevertheless, we still have a lot of stuff that we have to do as a subsidy daycare. In fact, just to give you an idea, and then we're going to look online too at some of this, but these papers right here, this little stack was our inspection report, okay? And our first one was a religious exempt one, and what it shows is the standards, the description of the violation, and then I have to sit there and tell them, what is our plan to correct that violation for every violation? We had to sit there and go through this with them. Well, this is our religious exempt one, and we had 3 violations, which is good. Only having 3. Even though we prefer to have none, we had 3. One of them was that we did not have a current person trained in daily health observation. That was on the paper, but it was never really clear to us how often you had to have that, if you even had to have that. It was suggested, but it was never in writing that we found that it had to be done. So we had kind of let that go, but it was made very clear that we have to have, as religious exempt, at least 1 person trained every 3 years. That would be the person checking the children. With subsidy, I believe it's higher than that, and that's why we normally put everyone through it. That's what we did several years ago, and that's what we're going to do from now on, so everybody can be a person that knows what to look for. The other 2 violations I feel bad about, but not too bad, because it really was out of our control. On that morning that she came, we were out of ratio because we had several kids come earlier than normal. We don't go out of ratio. You know I don't compromise on that. That is not something we compromise. We'll move kids, we'll have you stay later, but we never compromise ratio, ever. But that was going back to school. She came early, and we had done everything we could to have staff come in earlier, but she happened to come in at a time where we were over ratio in the infant room by 1 child and over here by 2 children. And so that's an automatic 2 violations, 1 for the infant room and 1 for the toddler room. So there's nothing we could do about that. We do adjust on a daily basis. If we see that we're having, like we've adjusted the infant staffing recently to have 3 people sooner. We had to adjust when we had to have 2. And so anyway, we do adjust based on the ratio sheets every day. But that day that she came, I don't know why Jesus allowed it to happen, but he did. And so anyway, so it's 2 violations. And so those 2, and then the daily health observation were our violations on that. And so as a religious exempt, that's pretty good because religious exempt doesn't have a lot of standards compared to other daycares. And she did say that for religious exempt, we looked very good. However, it was the subsidy that was not so good. And the thing about this now is that some of you know this and some of you don't know this. All of this goes online. It's public. And we're going to look at it. I'm going to show you. So on the Virginia Department of Social Service website, and it is already there. I've seen it. All right, you're going to go to child care in the middle where you see right above click here for additional resources. If you go to child care, to your left, down, to your right. There you go. Just click on that general one. Okay, now go all the way over to the right of your screen. And okay, go to child care again. Just put your cursor on it. Child care, not child support. Child care right there. Whoa, 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 whoa. Oh my goodness. Over one more to the left. Okay. No, it's not in this listing. It's something that's going to pop up on the right. Go down below to that child daycare. Click that once. Okay, over here on the right. Search for child daycare. And this is where parents will go. Even if they're not subsidy parents, they go here to check out daycares because social service gives them information on what they've seen at the daycares. If there's been complaints, that goes on there. Thank God we've never had complaints, okay? If you go down, scroll up a little bit. Okay, we want to click Religious Exempt Child Day Center in the box, just in the little X box. Okay, and if you go to the zip code, take out the facility name and just put in the zip code because I want to show you what comes up. These are the other religious exempt daycares in our area, which is good for you to, it's down in the 3rd box. The 3rd box down. Yes, over there. Put the zip code there, please. Okay, and then hit search on the underneath here on the left. Okay, then scroll up. Okay, so there's 4 religious exempt daycares in our zip code. Okay, and it's always under the church name because it's religious exempt. It'll never say Joyful Horizons. It always says Peninsula Pentecostals, and that's how social services recognizes us and works with us. So it has our church name on there, okay? Go ahead and click on the Peninsula Pentecostals. And there's my name. Okay, and this is the lady who evaluated us, Shalika Bowman. She was a very nice lady, I must say. Scroll down, and you can see we expire August 17th every year. We have to submit our paperwork, and you can see our inspection date. August 30th, you can see there's 2. Remember, I thought there's only 1. Well, there's 2. So now complaint related means somebody made a complaint, and that's why they came out. So nobody made any complaints, which is good. But were there violations? And yes. So click on yes. Okay, and these are the violations that I was talking about. So you can see, go ahead and go to the top of it. Well, I'm top of the violation. Down a little more. Okay. Violation, it tells you the standard. This is what's on this paper. Description, based upon observation and inspection of the facility, the center did not ensure that ratios were maintained for children from birth to 2 years. 1 staff member for every 4 children. That's the ratio. We all know that. Evidence. During the inspection conducted on August 30th, 2017, upon arrival to the infant room, there were 2 staff present with 9 infants. A staff member in the infant room was also observed leaving the room to open the door more than once, which put us out of ratio. She clarified that for me. Okay, so here's our correction. Well, I told her, I didn't know how to fix it. What we do normally works. So we normally have a ratio monitoring sheet to assist with staff scheduling. That's what they fill out. Donna and Grace fill out every hour. They'll say, how many kids do you have? And they write it down. We adjust the schedules if necessary to ensure ratios are maintained. If staff become aware that the ratios may be compromised, they are required to call in the next staff person who is scheduled to come in earlier. The next one is the same thing, except it was 2 years to 6 years. It's 1 for every 10 children, and there was only 1 staff with 12 children. Because we had a 2-year-old, we were out of ratio. If it was just school age, we would have been okay. But because we had toddler and preschool with school age, we were over 10, we were out of it. And then the last one was the daily health observation. Okay, so it's just 3, which isn't bad, but go back, Deja, to the other one. Yeah, the back arrow. Okay, go to the second inspection under violation. This is our subsidy one, and just do a quick scroll to the bottom. $17 violations. Okay, 17. And there's our church name, and there's my name right below it. And that is this document, which is multiple pages. Okay? So, I'm just telling you to make you aware, because we all have to work to meet the regulations. And some of them, to be honest, we knew we would get hit on, because this packet here that is 46 pages is the list of what we had to do. Now, it used to be, this is almost all new stuff that went into place last November. And that's why there's new training regulations, why we had to do 16 hours, why you had to do that course, all of that. And so they're very, very detailed on what they want, and when they come, it has to be followed to a T. There is no exception of I'm almost there, or I almost did that, or I'm 3/4 of the way done. It has to be exactly, or it's a violation. Okay? And so I just tell you that to let you know that when we ask you for stuff, or we tell you there's a deadline, you have to meet those deadlines. You have to do the stuff. It's not because we want to be mean and we want to put pressure on you, but they don't play. There's no room for error here. If it says that this has to be done within 7 days of you starting work, it has to be done within 7 days of you starting work. And so I will say that a lot of the violations were not things that you do in the classroom, so that was a good thing. There were a couple of things like we're replacing this changing table in here. We got hit in here because there were no gloves in that changing station. The material that we changed the children on was not non-absorbent, which means it was not really sanitary. So we got hit on that. We also did not have soiled linen containers, which if a child soils their clothes or their bedding, we had to have a separate container with a lid that's sealed to put that in. And so we're still putting that in a bag and then putting it in there. We also did not have soiled linen container in the infant room. And so we got some of those things. 2 of the cribs didn't meet standards. They changed or made the standards stricter about 2012. And so anything after 2010 is supposed to be okay. We had 2 cribs that were originally nursery that we were still using. They did not meet, so that was a violation. So all those things on there are violations. Those of us that didn't have a TB test on file, we got a violation. And what they do is they just pick a random number of student files, and they pick a random number of staff files. And every one had violations. So we just ask you to please help us in getting things updated. I know overall you guys do good at that, but just know that It's serious when we say we need this. This doesn't go offline, so it's going to be there for quite a while. It'll be there, and so we don't want to have violations again. I used to always go, because license centers have been doing this for a long time, I used to always go to the daycare in front of us and read theirs, and they always had violations. And I was like, yeah, that daycare is a mess, because we would have people come and tell us, and they'd always have violations. They'd have complaints. Well, now I feel like them, only maybe worse, because we had so many violations. But it is our first time, but we have a lot of things that have to get in order. We will not run a daycare with 17 violations. And so there's a lot of things we have to get into compliance with very, very soon. In fact, on all those plans of correction, there's dates, and everything is by September 30th. And they didn't even like giving 4 weeks out. They wanted like a week and it taken care of, like maybe 2 in some instances. So I know reality, that's going to take a little time. So, but we have to have things done. We ordered the 2 new cribs, which one is defective. We ordered the changing table, which will be coming. We took care of things. We had to have a battery-powered radio in case we lose all power. We would have communication with the outside world. And we had to have a flashlight with batteries, which I can understand, a flashlight with batteries. But anyway, lots of things that we're learning about like that. One of the things is that every staff member has to be CPR and first aid certified. There was a little bit of confusion on that, because in the document, in one place it said if it was religious exempt, you only had to have one person on staff at all times, which I never try to just have one person. We always try to do everyone. But we've waited on some people, and we let you skip out of the last one I had, but we cannot do that anymore. Like, it is a violation, and that was a violation we got, because not all of our staff were first aid CPR certified, infant, child, and adult. And so we'll have to be scheduling that for those of you that have not been through it. And it's not current. It has to be current on every single person. It is no longer just, as long as I have someone on staff, every single person has to be certified. So I wanted to kind of make you aware of what happened, what went on. And so like I said, a lot of it, though, was not necessarily stuff in the classroom. Now, in the infant room, she did see bottles that weren't labeled. We took care of that. Also, sheets that weren't labeled. Those were violations. Has to have the kid's name. Everything has to be clearly marked. Formula wasn't marked as date and time. Those kind of things. That has to be done. It was a violation. She saw them on the counter. Some weren't marked with names, and some had no date and time. And so those kind of things. And so we've corrected those things immediately that we could correct. But we still have more. And so just remember, you got to remember all these different things. Yeah, it's because all it takes is one child's sheets not marked causes the violation. One bottle not marked is the violation. And we can't afford to have a violation because you skipped doing something one time. So you just got to train your brain, and you just got to do it all the time. And then as you do it every day, it'll become second nature to you. But that's why we're saying we have to, like that book, we want to make sure you have, because it's going to tell you policy on a lot of things, so you know how things have to be done. And usually it's because of a regulation that they give us. And we try to do more than they require just to cover ourselves. Like, we try to operate with excellence and make sure we're above, bar on everything. We don't ever want anything to be questionable or like shady. So anyway, and if you're interested someday, you can go onto the site and you can read through all those violations. You can read our plan of action to correct. And that's why they're on you about getting your TB, getting your physical, getting your training in, all that kind of stuff. There is no exception. And even the documentation, if you would read some of the documentation I get, there are no exceptions to training not being fulfilled. And currently, to be quite honest with you, with social service and subsidy, I don't know with this inspection if we'll even be able to continue servicing those kids. That's how serious it is. They have not come back with me, but if you have a bad inspection, and you're not complying with what they want us to comply with, they'll drop you. And they'll say they terminate you, they close you in their eyes for a year. Now, we would still operate as religious exempt, but that's a very bad thing to have on your file. So I'm still not sure that we're out of the water with that. I expect that they'll come back. And so all these things have to be, and they will observe you in the classroom. They're going to look for things. And so we've all got to learn them. We've got to do them. And a lot of them we are doing, but there's other things that we have to keep doing. And we're going to talk about one thing tonight, is an emergency preparedness plan. Okay, and this is a really big thing with them now. Excuse me, and we did not have this. Most daycares in Virginia did not have this until last November. And we have fire drills, but now we have to have other drills, okay? And we have to have this very detailed plan of what we're gonna do. And they tell you very, very specifically what has to be in it. And so we have come up with that plan, and we are gonna go over it tonight, and you as staff have to know what to do. You're gonna get your copy of this. And it even tells us we have to update it every year. It tells us how often we have to do drills. Very, very detailed. So it's going to spell everything out for you. And so for the rest of the time, we're going to talk about this because this is new. Other than doing fire drills, we've not had emergency preparedness. We've had a little tiny bit of it in writing in some files that we have, but not really enough. We did not have enough because I could look through any document we had to try to satisfy the requirement. I went through old papers trying to see if it was written anywhere, anything we could do to find if we would meet the requirement. And she was very gracious to let us do that. But unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of the stuff. And so this is what is called an emergency preparedness plan. And there's 3 parts to it. One is evacuation procedures. The next one is shelter in place, and then lockdown procedures. And they tell us what we have to have, what we have to answer, what details have to be in each one, okay? And so we're going to give you maps too. If you take one and pass them around, I'll start them on opposite ends because there are 2 different maps. We'll be referring to these later on. But and most schools do these kind of things already. It's just that they hadn't made it mandatory for daycares, but they are now. Because if we were to ever have an emergency here, if we were ever to have an intruder, we would need to know what to do. And whether they were in the building or outside of the building, we have to know. If you remember a few months ago, there was a guy on Sunday that was running through with a gun, and he dropped his gun out here, and we were told he may come back looking for his gun, and we were warned. And so some of the daycare staff knew, keep your eye out for any strange people. You got to be alert, because he was running from the cops. The cops did a traffic stop, and he was a wanted person, and he took off through the thing. He ran through our churchyard, and he ran behind there, and he tossed his gun over the fence, and it landed beside our church. So Brother Beck and security was there, and they took care of getting the gun to the police. They stood there until the police came and all that. But people like that will come back to get their evidence. And so we were warned, keep your eyes out for this guy. We knew what he looked like because it was on the news and all that. But things like that can happen. And so we just have to, we know this isn't the best neighborhood. We know we have angels that protect us, but it's not the best neighborhood. And so it's good to be alert and to know what to do in the event, and for everybody to know what to do, because we all have to do the right thing. So we're going to go through this. And after tonight's training, it won't be tonight, but we'll be coming to you with some papers for you to sign, and also certificates for you, because we have to document that you are at this training. And this emergency preparedness plan is part of an orientation training that we have to do with you. Well, the orientation training has 11 bullet points, and I did not realize the depth of each bullet point that there is. And so what's going to happen is we're going to go over the emergency preparedness plan tonight, and maybe 1 or 2 other things. And then I'm going to have to video myself and have you watch the video for the other parts of it. And anyone that comes in after tonight that misses this part will watch this video as well as the other one, because I have to go through all these things with you as part of the staff. So if we look at the emergency preparedness plan, feel free to make notes on it, and you can ask questions. And this is our first draft, and so We may have to troubleshoot it. We may have to fix it. I'll be honest with you, I've never written an emergency preparedness plan in my life. And so I followed what they said to do, and I thought about what would we need to do. I thought about what we used to do in school system. But I'm not a trained person to do this. So this is my best shot at it, and we're going to see how it goes. It should meet all their standards because I followed the bullets. And there's about 10 to 12 bullets for each one of these procedures. But we're going to go through it and see. And then as we work it each year, if something isn't working or we have a way to make it better, we're going to update it and make it better. So we'll just go through it and see if it makes sense. Evacuation procedures. In case of the need to evacuate our building, such as fire, the following procedures will be followed. As soon as a fire is detected, the daycare director or shift supervisor should be notified, who will then ring the bell to alert all staff members. So just like you ring the bell for a fire drill, anytime you hear that bell, we need to get out of the building. Okay? All staff members and children should immediately exit the building using the designated routes out of the building as shown on the emergency evacuation maps. And that's this map right here. It says emergency evacuation map. We are updating these, and they will be reposted. I took the ones out of the nursery this morning to talk with Brother John about them, and one out of the office. They will be updated, as well as you will get a copy of it. He was unable to do it today. He had to leave. But we will be updating. You'll get a copy, and the corrected ones will be posted, or they'll be in color in every classroom. Okay, so you can see, basically, we know the ways out of the building. We're either going to go through those doors, or we're going to go through this door, or the nursery has the other door that they could exit out of. And so we'll talk about how do you know where to go in just a little bit. Now, this is important, and when we did the fire drill, I asked some of you about some of these things last time, but we probably never told you, all of you, what needs to happen. What is your responsibility during a fire drill other than to get your kids outside? Okay? Staff members should bring the red emergency folders from classes out with them. This is important. You should never go out without your red folder. And this is why, because if we get stuck out there and we have to call parents, you need to have that information there. Plus, it's your, all the kids that would be in your care, so it helps you make sure you have all your children. If you're missing, who are you missing? It also has their allergy information, so if while we're out there something's happening, we know what to do, okay? And so red emergency folders. Now, let me ask you this. They used to be, and I know they're not anymore, they used to be on the back of the door in a letter tray that was on the back of the door. So let me find out, where are they now? Where's infants? Okay, probably not a good idea because we need it close to the door. So we'll have to see about how we can get it close to the door. What about, but that's good, you guys know where it is. That's good. Toddlers, Crystal, do you know where the one is for your classroom? Behind the door? It's inside of there. Okay. What about preschool? By the door? Okay. Okay. And what about school age? Who has been in the school age room that knows where theirs is? In the corner on the rack? Like, is it by the door or the shelf that's on the back wall?
That's where I was keeping it when I'm at the school age, because I knew where it was at all times.
Okay. What I would like to do, and this is what we started doing, and we can talk about this and decide, but I want them in the same place in every class if possible, because that way everyone knows where it's at. When I was teaching at Grafton Middle, we had them on the back of the door, and they had to be there. And when you closed your door, you grabbed it and you went out. Like, it had to be there. Everybody knew to grab it, and if you were out there without it, you got in trouble. And so I would like to have it in the same place every class as much as possible so that it's standard. No matter who comes in, no matter what room you're in, you know where it is. And so we have to kind of work on that. I did used to have those things on the back of the door, and people they started falling off and people were putting other things in there, and so it was too heavy. And then the temperature changes sometimes didn't help that. But we need to think about where can they go. It needs to be near the door that can be the same in every class. That way, no matter where you are, you know this is the red folder for the class. And so it's something to think about, and we'll have to make a decision soon and then let everyone know. And if you have ideas, let us know. We're welcome to that too. And we're not trying to be difficult, but we need to be standard. And we need things to be consistent so everybody knows. If every class has it in a different place and you end up in a different class, how are you going to know where it is? How am I going to know when I come in where it is if I need to grab it, or if Sister Long needs to grab it, or Donna needs to grab it? So we just need to think about it. That's something we need to work out, and try to figure out what would be best and work for every class. All right, staff members should move the children to the evacuation sites, and we'll talk more about which evacuation site, which is on the other map. All children in the infant classroom will be moved outside using the evacuation cribs. Some of your cribs are evacuation approved, and those are the ones that we need to move them in. I don't know if you know which ones are. I know the ones I bought. The 2 new ones are for sure, and I'm pretty sure we have other ones that are. Okay, and then all infant seats in the building, and those are the parents that keep them there, they need to go out too. Because if we are stuck out there and can't get back in and have to go off-site, we cannot transport infants or children without proper seating. So the best way we can cover that is those infant car seats that are there that day, they need to go out with us.
How about I guess they're infant seats or toddler seats? Don't we have some in the office?
What I would say with that is they should go in the van every Monday and come out every Friday and stay in the van during the week. That way we don't have to move those out, but on Friday afternoon they come back in, Monday morning they go out. And this may sound like, do we really have to do this? Yes, we have to be prepared for emergencies. And if we try to transport kids without the proper things, we are in big trouble. So yes. We need to take out any of the car seats. I know they don't belong to all of our kids, but if we had emergency and had to transport, we would use car seats over and over and over. Because we can't stay here if there's a burning fire or an immediate danger, and we can't transport them without the proper seats. And so that is our best plan, to move them to wherever we would need to go. So staff members grab their red emergency folders, move the children to the evacuation site. The infants know they go, they may have some that walk, but the babies go in the crib, and then all the car seats go out too, okay? Once all staff members have been notified, the shift supervisor or designee should pull the fire alarm to alert the local fire department. So once the bell has been rung, the person that has rung the bell is going to pull the fire alarm to alert the local people while the teachers are getting their classes out. Depending on the location of the fire will determine which evacuation route staff and children take out of the building and which evacuation site that they assemble in. Okay, so if you look at the second map, and Deja, do you have these papers back there? No. Can somebody take her one? Because she's doing double duty for us tonight. She needs every paper and every map if possible. Which one is it? Okay. I have one of each. So some of you can share for it. You're going to get corrected ones, so I can have one to reference. No, the notes, there should be an extra notes, I think. Is that some in the center of the table, or? Yeah, as I say, I ran 15 of those. Just not as many as the map, because I knew you're going to have to get new maps. So this is just, I only ran 11, which was a little too short. Okay, but you can see on here, and there's a few changes he's going to make there in pen because he didn't get a chance to do it today. But evacuation site number 1 is the backyard of the Warwick House. This is the preferred site if the evacuation route is clear and safe. The reason that that's preferred is because it's out of the parking lot. It's fenced in. We can actually keep the kids closed in there. And so that is the preferred site to take our kids to, okay? The second site is adjacent to the garage behind the church. It's the next preferred site, given that the evacuation route is safe and clear, okay? And so we could either go out this way, or you might have to walk around this side of the building, because right now that fence is locked. We are working on getting a key to that fence so that if we were ever to evacuate, you would have a key to unlock it and move out that way as an option. And that is something that we're in the process of getting, so that we could go that way. Okay, and then evacuation site number 3 is the corner of the parking lot over there by the daycare fence and the other fence. That'd be our third choice. It is not preferred because it's in the parking lot. And cars, if it's emergency, things are going to be coming in, and all it takes is one child to get away from us. So that's really not preferred, but let's say that this one is not available and that one is not. That would be our third alternative. Hopefully we never have to get there. Okay, before the director or shift supervisor exits the building, if possible, they'll do a walkthrough of the building checking for children. And they also will bring outside with them the red emergency folder from the office. Each classroom has it for the children in the classroom, but the office has all the students that are currently enrolled in daycare. The daily sign-in sheets, those need to be grabbed and taken out. The medicine chest has to be taken out. They should take their cell phone in the event that we need to reach someone, and keys to the church and daycare van. Because if we can't come back in and we need a transport, we need to have those keys on us. Okay, so that would be like either myself, Sister Long, or Sister Donna right now would be grabbing the red folder from the office, the daily sign-in sheets off the shelves, the medicine chest, cell phone, and keys to the daycare van. Also, we would like to get the key to the fence so that if we have to go through there, we would have that. Okay, so, and the reason that we have them doing a walkthrough is because we have to show how are we going to make sure that all the children got out of the building. It's not enough just to say teachers and staff are going to exit. We have to have another step, and that's the other step. Now, we're not saying they're going to go through the flames to check this out, but they're going to go as many places as they can. They're going to yell, hey, is there anyone in here? They're going to do whatever they can to try to ensure that there are no children left in the building. And usually children aren't out of our sight anyway. It's not like a lot of school age where they might have gone to the bathroom by themselves or things like that. But we still need to do a check to ensure that all the children are out of the site, out of the building. Okay, once teachers arrive at the evacuation site, you need to do a head count and ensure that all of the children in your care are present at the site. That's why you need to know how many children you have at all times, because you need to know if you missed one. You need to know if one didn't make it out. And if you don't know how many kids you have, you're not going to know if you have them all when you get there, okay? So throughout the day, you want to keep up with how many kids do you have? How many do I have? When one goes home, or if you have a small class, you remember their names. You remember who all was here that day. Excuse me. And so you need to do another head count once you get there. Then, once the director or shift supervisor arrives there, they do another count to account for all of the children. They're going to go class by class and make sure we have everybody. And we have to do that. This is required. None of this is just for the sake of doing. They tell us we have to do these things. So this is what has to happen. Okay, so once it is safe to re-enter the building, all staff will return inside with their children. In the event that it is not safe for staff and children to re-enter the building, parents will be contacted via the cell phone to come and pick up their children from the evacuation site. And children's contact information is in the red emergency folders. That's in there just in case you don't know or you forget. All their important information is in there. And so that we would start making phone calls, and the parents would come from outside and they would pick them up outside. Now, in the event that we had to evacuate from this property, we have to have a designated place to go. So our designated place to go is the Spanish church. And we would have to transport our children in the van, children and staff in the van, while maintaining ratios throughout the whole process until we got everybody there. So the relocation site, you can see the name of the church, the actual address. They'll be transported using the church daycare van in groups. Infants will be transported using the infant car seats removed from the building. See why we had to take them out? And then toddlers, preschoolers will use the booster seats already in the church van or daycare, which that's why we're going to put them in Monday, take them out Friday. That way we don't have to try to go find those. We just leave them in there all week long. Staff will be transported with the children to ensure staff-child ratios are maintained, because if we compromise a ratio, that would be a violation. Okay, so we have to maintain the ratios. Once teachers and children arrive at the relocation site, again, you got to do a head count. You have to ensure that all the children in your care are present at your site. It's head count, head count, head count. You got to count multiple times. Okay, once everyone is at the relocation site, parents will be notified via the director or shift supervisor's cell phone to come and pick up their children. Again, their contact information is in the red folder. So that is evacuation. That's fire drill. If there was like a gas leak in here, electrical hazard, anything like that, when that bell rings like a fire drill, that means exit the building. Okay? And whatever we need to do there, everybody has their, as far as teachers. Any questions on that? Sister Long?
So when we have our monthly fire drill, because right now we're just going into the parking lot, should we actually get used to moving?
We should do everything that's listed in this. So this is new. And we're going to talk about drills because they tell us how often we have to have them and all. So yes, we need to practice as though it's a real fire. Yes. Yep. Which you maybe can put them in a crib. That might be easier. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, so we have to do this. Yes. Okay, now shelter in place. In case of the need to stay put during a tornado or notification from authorities, the following procedures will be followed. Children and staff members will move to the designated shelter areas on the emergency evacuation maps. This is a place in the building that we're going to talk about. Again, staff members must bring their red emergency folders from their class with them. When you leave that class, you're assuming you're not going back in. We hope that you go back in, but you assume that you're not going to. Okay? So, all children in the infant room will be moved using the evacuation cribs. The designated shelter areas are as follows, and they are on the second map. This right here is shelter area 1. Up along this wall, in the center, as close as we can get, is where shelter area 1 is. Now, for shelter area 2 is actually between this double set of doors and the sanctuary. That's actually an inward part of the church that is safer than a lot of other areas that we would have. So that would be our second designated area. If this was unavailable, we would go to there. It's in that little area between the main office, the workstation. Go through this double doors and in that area there where there's all those doors and the office windows. Okay? That is the second shelter area. Now, the director or shift supervisor has to bring, this changes, the battery-powered radio that we have now. We have a battery-powered radio. We have a flashlight with batteries. They have to bring their cell phone, the medicine chest, and the red emergency folder. So if all power goes out, somebody will be able to communicate with us using our battery-powered radio. Once children arrive in the shelter area, they should kneel down on their knees, put their head between their legs, and place their hands over their heads. Does anyone know what that looks like? Zaysha, you have to do this at school, don't you? Yes. Would you mind showing everybody? I do it, but I think I might have trouble getting back up. But this just, in case you don't know, this is what we need the children that are able to do this to do. We line up against the wall.
We sat too in ours, but
They say kneel on their knees. So either one is okay with me as long as they're down. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to fight on that. But the ones that can, we need to kneel or sit, and you got to cover your head until the drill's over. Okay? Now, teachers, you don't have to do that because you're supervising kids. But if it was a real tornado, you might want to do that. Okay, so once the children, we already talked about that. Once teachers arrive, they should do a head count and ensure that all children in their care are present at the shelter area. Again, we don't want to lose any children along the way. Once the director or shift supervisor arrives at the shelter area, she will do another check of the children to ensure that all children have made it safely to the shelter area. And once the danger has passed and it is safe to return to normal operation, All staff will return to their classrooms with their children. In the event that it is not safe for staff and children to return to the classrooms, parents will be contacted via the director or shift supervisor's cell phone to come and pick up their children from the shelter area. And again, their information is in the red emergency folder. You might. They don't really say, but you can't have them wandering around. But you would want them to sit down, probably, if possible.
I know when was dealing with disabled, actually you had them sit. If there was actually, then your body becomes their cover, you know, so, I don't know, that's just something maybe infants, if you are holding them, then you are the actual
Cover for them. Mm-hmm. Okay, any questions on that?
or a car seat if they're in a car seat.
Could be faced. Don't worry, we're going to get to practice these drills, so we'll be able to find out. Okay, the next one is the lockdown procedures. And this is important because let's say that there is somebody on the run from the police in the neighborhood. They could tell us to go on lockdown. We've had that happen during church services. You just didn't know. They've said, don't let anyone in or out. We're doing this in the neighborhood. And we don't even know what's going on, but security and people are on post, keeping everyone from going in and out. So, but if it happens during daycare hours, we would not want to be visible in front of any doors, any glass doors or anything. And so the way that we would know it's an intruder is this is something new. We're going to have a whistle that is blown 3 times because we don't have an intercom system and everybody has to know. We need to let you know immediately. So there's going to be a whistle that is going to be bought in the next few days. And I'll just start at number 1. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. The whistle was exciting to me. I would love to blow a whistle, you know? In the event of an intruder or danger in the immediate area, the center will immediately go on lockdown and the following procedures will be followed. A, the director or shift supervisor will blow the whistle 3 times to alert all staff of an intruder or possible danger in the immediate area. Now, if we actually have an intruder in here, you might actually hear him because this is a small facility and doors are open. But in the event that they come through this way or I don't know why, but if you'll hear the whistle 3 times, okay? Once the whistle is blown 3 times, that's your signal that there's an intruder and we're going into lockdown. The director or shift supervisor will then check all outside doors to ensure they are locked and will call 911 to alert them of the situation, okay? Given that the children and teacher are already inside of their classroom, the teacher will lock the door and you need to quiet the children. Because if there's an intruder in the building, we don't want them to know that there's kids in that room. I'm not going to tell you to turn the lights out because that will really make the children go crazy. But you want to try to quiet them as much as possible because you don't want anyone to know that there's people in that room. And so you're going to lock the door, quiet the children, make sure that you have all the children that you're supposed to have, okay? If the children are outside of the classroom but inside the building when the whistle is blown, let's say they're out here in the activity hall, then if it's safe, the teacher wants to move them immediately back into the classroom, lock the door, and from there. Let's say you're in the bathroom and it's not safe for you to come back to your classroom. You need to get the children in the bathroom. You need to try to block the door so that nobody could open it, and then you keep the children quiet until we come out of it. If it's safe to go back to your classroom, that's really where you want to go. But if you cannot, or you can't go without walking past danger, then you have to just stay and lock the door and quiet the children. And again, make sure you account for all of the children. Okay? Now, if you're outside playing, and the whistle is blown, you will not probably hear it if it's blown inside. So the shift supervisor is going to have to make sure you're alerted of that. Now, if the intruder's in the building, you don't want to come back into the building because you're probably safer out there. And so what you're going to do if you're out there is you're going to go on the other side of the garage, and you're going to sit the children on the other side of the garage so somebody looking out would not see them. They need to be quiet. And hopefully the intruder would stay in the building until we get them out. We're not going to ever have them go out this way unless they just find their way out, but they will go back out that way. So if you're outside and the whistle blows, it probably, if the person's going out to blow the whistle, they'd be able to let you know whether it's safe to come back in or not. But most likely you'll go on the side of the garage, have everyone be seated and be quiet until we get a signal to go on again. Okay, once an intruder is no longer a threat, the director or shift supervisor is now going to blow the whistle 5 times, saying, hey, resume normal operations, we're coming out of lockdown. So 3 times means we're going into lockdown, 5 times means we're coming out. It's safe to go back to normal. And you have to know that. You have to remember that. Okay, and we get to do drills on this too. So, in the event that the center is still on lockdown during the time that the parents would come to pick up their children, the director or shift supervisor would notify the parents, if possible, maybe through email or by cell phones, not to arrive on site at the daycare until the lockdown has been lifted. And that is something that could happen if we are on lockdown. It happens at schools all the time, and they delay dismissal. So the number one concern is what? What's our number one concern? The children and the safety of children. So they don't care if it inconveniences the parents a little bit by coming later. They're going to keep the children safe, and that's the way it is here too. Okay, so staff training on emergency procedures. They tell us what we have to do with this too. All staff will be trained on Joyful Horizons Daycare Emergency Preparedness Plan at their new hire orientation and reviewed annually at a mandatory training. Okay, so this is something that we have to do. All staff shall receive a copy of it and are responsible to know and follow this plan at all times. So this is your copy, and you are expected to know it. Now, the first couple times, we're going to be helping each other out. But after we do a couple drills, we've got to know what to do, and we've got to be able to act fast. And then number 3, all staff will participate in the emergency response drills conducted by the center. So if you're on duty, you're going to get to participate in them, and hopefully everybody gets to participate in them so you know in the event that it was a real situation. All right, they even tell us how often we have to have drills. Emergency drill frequency. The emergency response drills shall be practiced as follows. A, fire drills once a month. And because we have another drill that has to be done once a month, we're going to do fire drills between the 1st and the 15th of the month. Has to be done during those times. Evacuation drill, which remember is really like a fire drill, on the 16th to the end of the month. So it'll be 2 a month for that. Shelter in place twice a year, and that'll be done in April and October. So next month will be our first shelter in place drill. And then lockdown, we're going to do twice a year in February and August. And those will be our set times to do those drills. And so we have to do fire drills and we have to do evacuation drills. They're listed separately. And so I know we're doing the exact same thing for the most part, but we have to do it. We have to have something that shows fire drills and something that shows evacuation drills, even though our procedure is the same. Okay, then emergency preparedness review and update. We have to review this plan once a year and update it as needed, and that will be done in May. We're not going to just wait and say, well, when should we do this? We're saying it will be done in May every year. And after we update it, we have to come back to you with it and go over it with you again. We have to go over this every year. It's mandatory with you. So that is our new emergency preparedness plan. Are there any questions on that? It's going to be a learning experience together, but it's good because you never know what kind of situation we can have. And unfortunately, in today's society, we could have an intruder in here. We could have immediate danger in the area. We've had some irate parents before, and thank God they don't go after the kids. They just make us a little nervous in the office. But we know we can call who we can call right away. But anyway, so we never know what's going to happen, and we want to be prepared to respond. And they already do these things in schools. They're just now making daycares make sure they do them. And it's good. It's good for us to know how to respond. And the important thing is for us to remain calm. Really, really important for us to remain calm as teachers and communicate with one another and look out for one another. Like, if you see a child somewhere, grab them, get them back to where they need to go. If you see a teacher struggling with their class, help them. We all are in this together. We either all are successful or we all struggle together. So we want to be successful, and we want to protect our children and keep them safe. And so anyway, with that, are there any questions at all?
When we practice the fire drills, should we practice the two different ways to get out, or should we alternate? Or, I know we always got the front. I was just when I started.
It probably would be a good idea to maybe one go that way and one go this way, so that we know. So it's not something new, because telling little kids to do something new in an emergency situation might be really challenging, getting them to do something they're not used to. So that's a good point. We probably should try to do both. And we could say maybe what evacuation area to go to when we ring the bell, maybe. Sister Mimi?
Now, in the nursery, we have formula, we have water, we have diapers, we have wipes, and things like that. I know when we went through the lessons, in one of the lessons, it shows that you have to have a preparation you're supposed to have,
An emergency bag.
emergency, container, where you will have those things that in it that you should have.
It would be good to have that, especially for the infants. That may be something that they have not required that through the Virginia Department of Social Services, but it's not a bad idea to have. So if we want to put together something like that, and it's kept somewhere and everyone knows in the infant room where it is, and we grab it as one of the things that goes out. You wouldn't be able to take necessarily supplies for every child, but you could take a number of, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Actually, when I was in the school, every classroom had their own backpack, and because of the needs of the child. But even here, depending how long they're going to be out of the room, kids get antsy after a while. You just could have something for them, and also the toddlers are still in diapers and everything too. So we just had a backpack, or it was called our emergency backpack, and we just grabbed that too besides the red book.
Yeah.
You keep everything in the backpack. That way you're at the backpack, you automatically
We had two different ones, so, but whatever, it was just a thought.
Yeah, it's something we'll have to think about, give thought to, and maybe going a step further into what we have so far.
Those were extras, like you said. You have your basics that you have to do, but we had special needs, so we had to think of how to calm a child after we were even out there. And after a while, toddlers and preschoolers are going to get going.
Yeah. Yeah, another thing that came across my mind when I was doing this, but I'm not ready to say that I want to do this yet, is I thought about the benefit of the teacher having a cell phone on them. It's just that it's also a distraction, and it's not worth compromising the safety of children. But in an emergency situation, it would be very helpful if the teacher had their cell phone on them. But we've already seen, even with telling you you're not allowed to have them, and people having them and being on them, and I'm not sure that it would be worth what we would be losing on a regular basis, your attentiveness to children. And so, but I will tell you that it is something that I'm considering and thinking and trying to outweigh the pros and cons with it, because we don't have a phone system in the classroom. And if we had to contact you, or let's say, you were somewhere, it would be a way to communicate, but we also have seen the negatives of that a lot. And so, even the fact that you have it and we've said not to have it lets me know that you're not necessarily going to follow what we say. So if I say you can have it but don't get on it, what would make you follow that if you're disobeying when I say don't have it? So I am considering it, because I can see the benefit of it, but I'm also very concerned. And so I'm not ready to say that we can, but I could see where a benefit would be having it for emergency situations. It could be very handy because it could be communicating and things like that. Sister Lucretia?
But if I go on a vibrate, because mine could be in my pocket and it'll vibrate and I don't even know that it's going on. Because I was using two-way radios, even one for each class. Because what if, like, here's a situation that now if Crystal's in there and the kids, one of them needs to go to the bathroom and there's nobody in this general area, it doesn't matter how much she yells out for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
No, because they're not going to hear her.
Walkie-talkies be considered those things that you can.
I'm not sure.
Julia brought someone,
Mm-hmm.
a little, amount of time and everybody had one in the class. It was a regular used to, have them, and she brought it, and we will have it.
Yeah, it's just I'm not sure who would you be contacting, because if we don't have somebody in the office, are you contacting another teacher in another class asking them to come out? Or we really are trying to have a floater or somebody in the office as much as possible. Like Sister Long in the afternoons and Sister Donna, she's not completely free, but she is able to float more. So I don't know, we'll have to see. To can go. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah, we're working to have somebody that's more of a floater and doing other things at the same time, but not necessarily locked into a class with with a ratio number. But anyway, we'll keep on trying and see what we can do. And we'll just have to, keep the lines of communication open as much as possible. And if you're experiencing a problem a lot, let us know, and we can try to work on fixing it. Nothing is going to go perfect. We are a limited facility with limited staffing, but we want to try to make it as easy for you as possible and not hectic. So if there is a problem that you're having over and over, let us know, and we will try to address it as much as what we can possibly do. And I know we're trying to free somebody up to get the door so that you're not having to come out of the class. And things like that to try to help you, and also to stay in regulation. So I didn't realize they would count that as a violation, and they did. So.
It will be hard, or it will be the possibility, to have what, we have in the entrance of, office. They ring the bell and you can let the person in through the phone.
I don't think you could do another one there. I believe it's only one. And it's the same phone system throughout the church. So I don't, plus we like to see who's there. We don't want to open the door blindly. Because they can say they're anyone, And I like to always see before I go. I don't like to go blindly and let anyone in. I know out there they do have to, but they're coming through multiple doors before they come right where our children are. So, yeah, we'll have to work on it and see. But anyway, so that just gives you our emergency preparedness plan, which is now required at all daycare centers in Virginia. And so we will be having an evacuation drill between now and the end of the month. So make sure you can find your red folders. We will be determining a location for those that's consistent in the classroom soon too. And one thing about the red folders is that in the office, we update them and put the information in, but as a teacher, please go through and make sure we have all your students and that it's correct. Do a double check. Don't just rely on the office to make sure it's right. As a teacher, go the extra mile and make sure all your kids are in there. Make sure it has their information and their allergy page should follow it. And if you see some information that's wrong on the child, let us know, because we have found that sometimes the information is wrong. It's been wrong in the computer, and somebody either misread, or we were given, the parents sometimes write the wrong date. They'll write their birth date as the day they're filling out the application. And so there's things like that that can happen, and if we don't catch it before it goes into the computer, it can come out on the sheet wrong. One other thing I want to mention about outside playtime is I don't want you going in the parking lot. That's very, very dangerous. And just to let you know, when the lady was here looking around and she went out back to see, she said, so they play here, they don't play up here, do they, where people drive? And I said, no, they don't play up there. But sometimes some of you might wander up that way. You cannot. You need to stay behind the garage in the grass area, because most daycares have a completely fenced in area. We don't have a fenced in area. All it takes is one kid to get a little bit away from you and a car to come speeding in here, and it's too late. And it's negligence on our part. We should not take kids to a parking lot. And I'm not sure why we're doing that. I'm sure there's a reason why you guys wanted to do that, but we cannot. That is putting ourselves in a very bad situation. That's different than playing in the parking lot down here. And if you're taking them through the parking lot, then you have to be very careful where the traffic could go. It's a limited time. But taking them to play in the parking lot, we cannot do that. We can't control who comes in here. The UPS people, FedEx, they fly in here. And they're not expecting to see kids. And like I said, it doesn't matter how good we are. It does not take long for a kid to get a little bit away from us and someone not see them. I mean, you know. We need to ask the parents to spray them with bug spray or to send bug spray before they go out. We don't provide that because they could be allergic to whatever we choose, but they do need to go outside. And some daycares you have to go outside twice a day. Some of our kids don't get out at all. They need to get out at least once a day, if not more, when the weather permits. And there are certain temperature regulations that you have to stick within, but we need to get our kids outside. It helps fighting colds so that they don't get as many colds and things like that. Yeah, and so a lot of it, we just never talked about it, so we're just letting you know, don't go to the parking lot. You probably didn't know and maybe didn't even think about why that might be bad, but we just don't want to put ourselves in a situation where, why would you take kids to a parking lot? That doesn't even sound good. If we had to, we couldn't justify that. We couldn't defend you in that case, because where cars go, you just would not take kids out there to play. That's fine, but keep them from the building up. Don't take them back this way. And the closer you can keep them to the fence, the better. Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't go past the building in the back. Yeah, just keep them in that area so that it's very well confined, because it's fenced and it's closed in. And that's fine too. Yeah, so. These are good questions, and a lot of times we don't always get to talk about these things, so people don't always know what's expected or what's allowed. And so it's good for us to just, as we find out and as we have chances to meet, to let you know what we should or shouldn't do. And I do want to encourage you, though, to take kids outside at least once a day. Get them some fresh air. It's good. I know sometimes if you have a large class, it can be hard to manage, and then give them something to do while they're out there. Don't just, because we don't have a playground, and they're not always good at entertaining themselves outside, bring a ball, bring something, and give them some options on what to do, for at least a little bit. If we can take them outside, it's really good for them. So, all right, well, we will have more information coming to you, but we need to do the door prizes and get you out of here. So we can see this side didn't eat very much chocolate. This is the non-chocolate side. Or maybe you just had a lot. I don't know. I was going to say my chocolate was gone, but okay, the first one is Jasmine Burt. Okay? And we have 2 gift cards. I'm not sure which one is in which. One is a $10 Chick-fil-A card, and the other one is a $10 card to Walmart. So I'm not sure which one is which, but you can pick one. I don't remember which one is which. And then we'll see who wins our second one. Okay? Mary Copeland. Look, I said it right in front of you. All right, there you go. Okay, so, yes. So anyway, thank you, ladies, for being here. And thank you for all that you do. You make Joyful Horizons a great place. And even though we have a lot of work to do to meet the subsidy requirements, we're going to keep on every day getting better and better. And thank you for all that you do, for your faithfulness. And this is the best staff that we've ever had at Joyful Horizons. And so we are very grateful and appreciate you and love you and cannot say thank you enough for all that you do. So have a great night. If you want more food, there's more cookies, more tea, more salad, more soup. Whatever's left we'll have for lunch tomorrow. So if you don't have time to pack a lunch tomorrow, salad and soup. It's always nice not to have to pack a lunch. So anyway, thank you, ladies. And chocolate, you can take chocolate with you if you'd like. And we'll be getting you paperwork to sign for all of to give you credit for being here and stuff. So.